In January 2014, the body of 18-year-old Heather Malone was discovered in the living room of a suburban Brookhaven home. What initially appeared to be a straightforward tragedy unraveled into a web of jealousy, betrayal, and violence. The story that unfolded exposed the dark consequences of an illicit affair and an obsession that spiraled out of control. The chain of events began in the fall of 2013 at Brookhaven High School, where 28-year-old Nathan Ellis, the school's new basketball coach, was making a name for himself. Nathan wasn't just skilled at coaching. He had a magnetic charm that drew people to him. His players respected him, their parents admired him, and his wife, Hannah, adored him. To the outside world, he seemed to have it all: a promising career and a beautiful marriage. Nathan and Hannah Ellis were the quintessential couple. Married on April 14, 2012, they had recently moved into a modest but cozy 3-bedroom home on the outskirts of Brookhaven. With its backyard perfect for a swing set and a spare room ready to become a nursery, the house symbolized their dreams of a bright future. Hannah, a kindergarten teacher known for her warmth and patience, was the heart of their home. Despite Nathan's demanding schedule as a coach, she remained his unwavering support system, encouraging him to follow his passion while she envisioned their family's future. She even kept a notebook of baby names on her bedside table, a quiet testament to her hope and excitement. But as Nathan settled into his role at the high school, balancing his new responsibilities with his marriage proved more challenging than he anticipated. Late nights reviewing game footage and coaching his team began to take precedence over quality time with Hannah. Though Hannah reassured him of her support, the growing distance between them left an opening for something, or someone, to slip in. Heather Malone was everything you'd expect from a high school cheerleader: strikingly beautiful, confident, and the center of attention wherever she went. But behind her polished exterior was a young woman battling demons no one could see. At just 17 years old, Heather carried the scars of a turbulent upbringing. Raised in a chaotic household where arguments drowned out affection, Heather grew up craving stability and love. Her father had abandoned her at 10, leaving her with a mother who was too consumed by alcoholism to notice her daughter's struggles. The lack of support forced Heather to become resourceful, learning to wield her beauty and charm as tools to get what she needed. Despite her popularity, Heather's vibrant personality masked a deep insecurity. Beneath the cheerleader's radiant smile was a lonely girl desperate to be seen, to be valued for more than her looks. And in Nathan Ellis, she saw not just a coach, but a savior, someone who could offer her the stability and validation she had always craved. It began innocently enough. Heather lingered after cheer practice, watching Nathan's basketball team as they practiced late into the evening. To her, Nathan represented everything she wanted: confidence, maturity, and the promise of a better life. For Nathan, Heather's attention was flattering, though at first he dismissed it as harmless admiration. His demanding schedule had created a gap in his marriage, and Heather's compliments about his leadership, his dedication, even his appearance, fed a part of him he hadn't realized was hungry. By October 2012, Heather began finding excuses to talk to Nathan. She'd ask for advice about school or seek his input on her cheer routines. Nathan, always the mentor, obliged. At first, their conversations were lighthearted, but over time, they grew more personal. Heather shared the pain of her broken home and her longing for something better. Nathan, moved by her vulnerability, began to see Heather as a troubled student who needed guidance. His instinct to help clouded his judgment, and the line between coach and student blurred. Heather, sensing his growing attachment, began to push boundaries. By December, their once innocent interactions had crossed into forbidden territory. Late one evening, after a game, Heather and Nathan found themselves alone in the gym. The unspoken tension between them erupted into a moment that would forever alter both their lives. What began as a reckless mistake quickly escalated into a full-blown affair, one Heather clung to like a lifeline. Nathan, torn between his guilt and his inability to end things, found himself trapped in a dangerous web. Heather's obsession with him deepened, and by January 2013, her grip on his life was tightening. What neither of them knew was that their secret would soon unravel, leaving devastation in its wake. By November 2012, what began as innocent admiration between Heather and Nathan had transformed into a precarious connection teetering on the edge of impropriety. Heather, desperate for stability and affection, sought solace in Nathan's attention. Nathan, torn between his roles as a mentor and husband, found himself caught in the web of her obsession. It started with late-night conversations in the gym. Heather would linger after practice, sharing fragments of her broken home life. Her vulnerability struck a chord with Nathan, whose instinct to protect and guide his students blinded him to the dangerous line he was crossing. Nathan told himself he was simply being supportive, but deep down, he knew the growing intimacy was inappropriate. Heather, however, wanted more. Encouraged by Nathan's initial kindness, she became bolder in her pursuit. Her texts became more personal, her compliments more pointed. She dressed provocatively at practices, ensuring she was always in Nathan's line of sight. Nathan, feeling trapped by her unrelenting attention, tried to maintain a professional distance, but Heather knew exactly how to exploit his vulnerabilities. By late December 2012, the boundary between teacher and student shattered. After a tense home game, Nathan stayed late in his office, overwhelmed by the pressures of coaching and his faltering marriage. Heather seized the opportunity, showing up uninvited under the guise of needing advice. Their conversation escalated into a moment of emotional intensity, and in a single reckless act, they crossed the line. For Nathan, the affair became an agonizing source of guilt. He adored his wife, Hannah, and hated himself for betraying her. But Heather's hold on him grew stronger with each secret meeting. She was intoxicating, a mix of vulnerability and cunning, and Nathan couldn't seem to break free. Heather, on the other hand, was consumed by her obsession. She saw Nathan as her savior, the escape from the chaos of her life. But her affection soon twisted into possessiveness. By January 2013, Heather began demanding more of Nathan's time and attention, prying into his marriage and fishing for signs of unhappiness. When Nathan tried to pull back, Heather's behavior became erratic. The breaking point came in August 2013 during a pivotal basketball game at Brookhaven High. Hannah, visibly pregnant and glowing with joy, surprised Nathan by attending the game. As she cheered him on from the stands, Nathan's pride and love for his wife were unmistakable. But for Heather, it was a moment of devastation. Watching the man she had risked everything for beam at his wife, her jealousy boiled over into rage. Heather stormed out of the gym that night, her mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. Nathan's growing family felt like an insurmountable wall between them, and she vowed to tear it down. Her obsession took a darker turn as she began plotting ways to eliminate Hannah from the picture. Nathan, sensing Heather's escalating instability, decided to end the affair once and for all. In late August 2013, he confronted her in his office, firmly stating that their relationship was over. Heather's reaction was explosive. She sobbed, pleaded, and threatened, oscillating between declarations of love and veiled warnings. Nathan walked away, determined to rebuild his marriage and leave his mistakes behind. But Heather wasn't willing to let go. By November 2013, her obsession had reached a fever pitch. When Nathan ignored her texts and avoided her at school, Heather spiraled. She spent sleepless nights stalking his social media, dissecting every photo and post for signs of his happiness with Hannah. Fueled by desperation, Heather devised a sinister plan. On November 1, 2013, she showed up uninvited at the Ellis home. Her feigned politeness masked her true intentions as she entered the house and struck up a conversation with Hannah. When Hannah stepped away to retrieve a glass of water, Heather made her move. From her purse, she produced a vial of poison and poured it into Hannah's tea. Heather left the house, her heart racing with both fear and satisfaction. She told herself it was only enough to make Hannah sick, to scare her into leaving Nathan. But deep down, she wanted Hannah gone for good. That night, Hannah fell violently ill. By the time Nathan rushed her to the hospital, it was too late. The poison had caused a miscarriage, shattering the couple's dreams of starting a family. Nathan was devastated, and as he pieced together the events leading up to that night, suspicion fell squarely on Heather. When confronted, Heather denied everything, her calm exterior masking the storm inside. But her parting words to Nathan were chilling. "You haven't seen what I'm capable of." Nathan's world began to crumble. He distanced himself from Heather, terrified of what she might do next, but her obsession only deepened. Heather was no longer just a love-struck teenager. She was a dangerous force spiraling out of control. As the new year approached, the stage was set for a final confrontation that would bring this tangled web of love, betrayal, and obsession to a devastating climax. By January 2014, Nathan Ellis was a shell of the man he once was. The weight of his betrayal, the loss of his unborn child, and the growing shadow of Heather's obsession hung over him like a dark cloud. His once thriving marriage to Hannah was strained to its breaking point. Despite his efforts to shield her from the truth, Hannah couldn't ignore the tension or the lingering presence of Heather. Heather, on the other hand, was unraveling. After the poisoning incident, she became increasingly erratic, skipping classes and showing up unannounced at Nathan's home and workplace. Her obsession with him had consumed her entirely. She saw Nathan as her only source of happiness and blamed Hannah for standing in the way. By February 2014, Nathan decided he couldn't remain silent any longer. He confessed the affair to Hannah, hoping that honesty might save what was left of their marriage. Hannah was devastated. She demanded he cut all ties with Heather and report her erratic behavior to the school administration. Nathan agreed, but it was too late. Heather had already begun plotting her next move. On the evening of February 14th, 2014, Valentine's Day, Nathan planned a quiet dinner at home to try and mend his relationship with Hannah. He cooked her favorite meal and set the table with candles and flowers. It was his way of showing her that he was committed to their future. Unbeknownst to them, Heather was watching from a distance, parked in her car just outside their house. She had been following Nathan's every move for weeks, growing more furious with each sign of his devotion to Hannah. Seeing the romantic setup inside the Ellis home pushed her over the edge. Fueled by jealousy and rage, Heather stormed up to the front door and began pounding on it, screaming Nathan's name. Startled, Nathan rushed to the door, attempting to calm her down. "Go home, Heather," he pleaded, stepping outside to prevent her from coming in. But Heather was beyond reason. She accused him of betraying her, of lying to her, and of choosing Hannah over her. Her voice cracked with desperation as she pulled a knife from her jacket pocket. "You promised me," she screamed, her face twisted with anger and heartbreak. Hannah, hearing the commotion, stepped outside. The sight of her only fueled Heather's fury. "You're the reason he won't love me," Heather shouted, pointing the knife at Hannah. "You've ruined everything." Nathan positioned himself between the two women, his arms outstretched in a futile attempt to defuse the situation. "Put the knife down, Heather," he said, his voice trembling. "This isn't you. Please." But Heather was too far gone. In a moment of blind rage, she lunged forward. Nathan, acting on instinct, grabbed her arm, trying to wrestle the knife away. The struggle was chaotic, and in the confusion, the blade found its mark. Heather staggered back, blood staining her shirt. Her eyes filled with shock and betrayal as she crumpled to the ground. Nathan stared at his trembling hands, realizing what had just happened. Hannah immediately called 911, her voice shaking as she explained the situation. Nathan knelt beside Heather, applying pressure to the wound and begging her to hold on. "Why?" Heather whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted you to love me." By the time the paramedics arrived, it was too late. Heather was pronounced dead at the scene. The aftermath was a whirlwind of grief, guilt, and legal proceedings. Nathan was cleared of wrongdoing, his actions deemed self-defense. But the incident left an indelible mark on him and Hannah. Their marriage, already fragile, couldn't withstand the weight of the tragedy. They separated a few months later, each trying to rebuild their lives in the shadow of what had happened. Heather's death became a cautionary tale at Brookhaven High, a reminder of the dangers of blurred boundaries and unchecked obsession. Nathan left his coaching position and moved to another state, hoping to escape the memories that haunted him. But even miles away, he couldn't forget Heather's final words or the darkness that had consumed her. The tragedy served as a painful lesson, one that he would carry with him for the rest of his life.